Hello, dear friends. Every political regime based on the old paradigm of fear, control, scarcity, and manipulation will fall, set by us. Opinion piece. Beginning of the end. Preparations. Systemic failure. Sudden changes. Human freedom. This phase is quiet. Collapse of Europe. Divine intervention. Systemic deterioration. Greenland is negotiated. Awakening of consciousness. US withdraws from the UN. Let's start. 2026 is the year in which Western civilization will decline, according to Paul Craig Roberts. Integrity is a thing of the past. News has become a narrative serving special interests. The digital revolution has produced countless scams, identity theft, and insecurity for property and people. Today, ethnic national identity is equated with extremism. In France, Marine Le Pen is banned from running for office. No European government represents its ethnic population, except perhaps Hungary and Poland. The EU was created to suppress the ethnic nationality of European countries and destroy their sovereignty, subjecting them to an artificial structure. It is an autocratic institution where power resides in appointed leaders, not in representatives directly elected by the people. This is a fragile structure, and to keep it together, the EU has focused on the supposed Russian threat, against which Europe must stand united. Therefore, preparing for war is the strategy for keeping European nations captive. If war breaks out, there will be no Europe. Freedom. According to Saint Germain, the elite have realized that the awakening of human consciousness represents a threat to their ancient dominion. Consequently, they employ increasingly sophisticated methods to manipulate public perception and maintain their authority. However, on this occasion, such attempts are thwarted by divine intervention. Humanity is far more prepared than ever. They are beginning to remember who they are, and this awakening is a powerful force against the darkness. Communities are forming, united by a common purpose and a shared vision of freedom. This solidarity is essential, as it creates a formidable force against oppressive tactics. Opinions. According to Niall McCrae, we are immersed in a behavioral psychology program. The elite manipulate everything in the process of building an authoritarian technocracy. Singularity. Elon Musk predicts that AI will surpass human intelligence by 2026, but Mike Adams warns about globalist exploitation. Centralized AI could facilitate mass surveillance, the population, and economic destabilization unless it is decentralized. According to Mike Adams, the Great Reset in Davos is presented not only as an economic or political agenda, but as a Luciferian plan to impose digital tyranny, the population, and centralized control, directly opposing the divine order. Scripture warns that these plans will expose corruption and fulfill prophecy. According to Elisa Ayres, White Hat forces have carried out massive operations, freezing and seizing billions of dollars linked to the dark side. These funds, looted for generations, are flowing into the QFS for direct redistribution to the people. Delta Force and its commanders are dismantling shadowy networks around the world. We are building the infrastructure of human freedom, encompassing health freedom, financial independence, self-sufficiency, natural healing, and much more. According to Mike Adams, it's about more than just health, nutrition, and prevention. It's about empowering humanity with access to tools and knowledge that will revolutionize and strengthen human life. Preparations. According to Secrets of Gisela, discussions and reports have been held regarding preparations, training exercises, and contingency plans related to emergency communication systems. These conversations are usually presented as precautionary measures designed to ensure continuity of communication and public safety during unexpected or large-scale events. Some sources describe these preparations as routine training activities emphasizing coordination, testing procedures, and protocol reviews to ensure the system functions correctly in the event of an emergency. This planning typically involves internal assessments and phase testing rather than immediate public activation. Any potential use of emergency communication systems will adhere to strict legal, technical, and security standards. Timelines are subject to change, and details are usually restricted to a limited number of authorized professionals for security reasons. The overall intent behind emergency planning frameworks is to protect public welfare, ensure orderly communication, and maintain stability during periods of uncertainty. Movement. Something significant is happening behind the scenes, and it has nothing to do with elections wars or the headline stories, according to Mr. Poole. The movement is taking place within systems that were never meant to be discussed publicly. Identity frameworks are being discreetly audited. Data ownership agreements that people unknowingly agreed to years ago are being re-examined line by line. The most significant change isn't financial, but structural. Who owns the records? Who controls access? Who was the authority to revoke, freeze, or reassign identity-linked permissions? When these issues change hands, everything else follows. Electric grids receive the same treatment, not the power plants you see, but the layers of control that underpin them, the software, the routing logic, the failover protocols. Once isolated, entire regions can be stabilized or destabilized without the push of a single button in public. That's why we see sudden updates, inexplicable delays, and seemingly contradictions policies. They are buying time while legacy control frameworks are dismantled and replaced with something far more centralized and less visible. Those who built the old system assumed it would never be challenged. They assumed compliance was permanent. What they didn't foresee was a moment when the records themselves would become evidence. Watch for sudden, politically nonsensical changes. Watch for institutions quietly backtracking on positions they vehemently defended just weeks ago. Watch for silence where there was once sanctity. This phase isn't noisy, it's precise. And once it's complete, many things once considered immutable will turn out to be optional. Fulford summary. Major Western banks sold off massive amounts of gold and silver they didn't have to contain the price of precious metals. The 43-day US government shutdown at the end of the last year occurred because the West lacked physical gold and silver to pay its debts to the rest of the world. Yet, on January 1st, China, which refines 70% of the world's silver, imposed severe restrictions on its exports. This explains the surprising price surge. Banks have been selling silver and gold paper for years to suppress the price of precious metals. The price of gold is skyrocketing because the Bank for International Settlement is trying to entice enough people to sell their jewelry and personal precious metals reserves so it can obtain gold to pay the Asians, but it's not working. For years, demand for physical silver has outpaced supply. Silver stocks are dwindling, and recycling isn't keeping up with demand. There is 356 times more paper silver than physical silver to back it. The owners of this paper silver are now demanding physical delivery, which is impossible. Former Greek finance minister Yanis Varoufakis released a video of a secret meeting at the Bank for International Settlements headquarters with about 30 central bankers. He claims they are preparing for a systemic failure while trying to delay it. He warns that they are planning bank holidays, asset seizures, and other controls, even though they realize that all they can do is buy time for a system in its terminal phase. Most countries are selling off US Treasury bonds. Colonel Douglas MacGregor believes the US lacks the capacity to seize control of Venezuela. Richard Werner says the intervention in Venezuela was designed to challenge the global de-dollarization led by Russia, China, Iran, and the BRICS. The US government is hiring 400 lawyers to review 5.2 million Epstein documents. Hugo Carvajal released the names of all the senators on the list of Venezuelan politicians who have received millions of dollars in bribes from the Maduro regime. There is speculation that they will try to capture Ayatollah Khamenei. The other news that the media isn't covering is the collapse of the EU amid the biggest corruption scandal in its history. Archbishop Carlo Vigano is calling for the arrest of von der Leyen and her colleagues. The governments of the UK, France, and Germany are on the verge of collapse. British police have used video surveillance and facial recognition technology to arrest people based on social media posts. The banking sector in Germany is insolvent. In France, revolutionaries have taken to the streets. In Italy, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni is demanding the return of Italy's gold reserves. She has also rejected the European Migration Pact, calling it an insult to Italian democracy. Representatives from China, the US, Israel, the P3 Freemasons, and the White Dragon Society are preparing for a new Bretton Woods conference. At the meeting, they will demand the cancellation of all debt, both public and private. They will also demand the return of assets stolen through monetary fraud by private central banks. This should give everyone the equivalent of owning their own home and having sufficient savings. Furthermore, it is proposed to replace the current Babylonian system of debt with money backed by real assets. The creation of a planning agency to work towards creating the future people want is also proposed. Breaking news. President Trump has just withdrawn the US from the UN. Venezuela announces the release of a significant number of political prisoners. The 5 Spanish prisoners released in Venezuela arrived in Madrid. Trump says they will begin ground attacks against the cartels that are running Mexico. The US is betting on diplomacy with Greenland and announces a meeting with Denmark. I don't believe there will be a military conquest of Greenland, but rather a rental or lease. Secretary of State Marco Rubio plans to meet in Copenhagen next week. Rubio stated that the administration's objective is to buy Greenland rather than seize it militarily. The mullahs of Iran and their families are packing their bags for Europe. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.